Hi, I'm Brandon Gillen, your immigration lawyer here at Gillen Law Group, and you're watching this video because you and your spouse have recently received your adjustment of status interview notice in the mail. And we have sent you an email with that interview notice attached, and also a link so you can download the entire packet that we had submitted to Homeland Security for the applications. And then of course a link to this video that you're watching now. The purpose of this video is to kind of prep you on a broad basis for what to expect at the interview in terms of what kind of questions the officer is going to ask and also what documents you guys need to bring. So let me get started. This here is your interview notice. This is what it looks like. Your interview notice is going to have your name and address up here. This is the copy that we received, so it'll have, this one has my name and our address, and it'll also have some vital information about your application up here, including your alien number, A number, and your receipt number, the date it was filed, and what it is. So also we have these barcodes here that will, the officer, when you check in, is gonna scan those to let the officer know you're there. So first things first, your interview is gonna be on this date and time at this location. And so for purposes of this video, it's going to be broad in terms of how the field offices will, across the country, will handle your application. Most of my clients are going to be in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland, Yakima, Spokane, but I'm going to describe, for purpose of this video, what the process, the check-in process is at Seattle. In terms of what documents to bring, what questions they're going to ask, it's likely going to be the same anywhere in the country. So that being said, when do you show up to the interview? So if your interview says it's at 9 in the morning, the interview notice itself says show up 15 minutes before that interview. What that means is present yourself to the front of the building at 8:45. In Seattle, the security guard won't let you in until it's 15 minutes prior. So you can't show up an hour before and expect to be let in the building. When you get your interview notice in the mail, by the way, read it in its entirety. Read everything. I know it's very fine print, but there's some important information, and it should be like 1.5 pages like this. So do read it, please. Okay, so when you show up, you're gonna go through security first, and after going through security, you're gonna check in at the triage counter, and this is in Seattle. So there's a little triage counter right after security. They're gonna give you a ticket number, and the ticket number might say like P13 or J22, something like that, like the DMV. What you wanna do is take that ticket number and head up to the second floor lobby waiting area. That's where they're gonna call the ticket number when they're ready. You might have to wait half an hour, hopefully not longer, in the lobby, but eventually they will call your ticket number. So when you go into eventually when your ticket number is called, you're gonna follow the officer into their room, and they're gonna start the interview. So the interview consists of 2 basic parts. The first part is doing the form review to make sure that the application that we submitted is up to date and correct. And the second part is gonna be just asking some basic questions about your marriage. So first thing is the form review. So what the officer's doing is they're gonna wanna just make sure that everything is up to date. So for example, we might've filed your application a year prior, and a lot can change in a year. So people can change their names, they can have children, they can move, they can change jobs, they can commit crimes, hopefully not, but you get the idea. Things can change. And so the officer's gonna ask every single question on both the petitioner's I-130 and the applicant's I-485. So just review the forms that we sent you, and you'd already reviewed them when you signed them, but re-review them because it might have been some time since you've seen them. just to make sure you understand the questions they're going to ask and to address any updates that might be necessary at the interview. And it's okay to make updates to the officer at the interview. Sometimes things are missed even in when you guys sign. Say there's a number that's wrong in your address, and so you can just simply update that with the officer at the interview, and that's very common. The officer might make 3 or 4 updates, and that's routine, normal. Okay, so once the officer is done with the form review, they're gonna switch gears and ask questions about your marriage. So very generally, probably just start it with, so how did you guys meet? And you guys, however you met, just tell your story. You don't have to be very long-winded, just short and sweet. Say, hey, we met online a couple years ago, or we met through family or through a friend, or whatever it may be. The officer will ask some follow-up questions based upon whatever you guys say, how you met. And I bet that conversation will last 15 minutes tops, probably a lot less. Toward the end of that interview, the officer is going to want to get some documents from you guys because they want to be able to see through paperwork, through documentation, that you guys have a bona fide marriage. And so what that means is they want to see things like pictures of you guys together. Maybe you took a trip to Las Vegas, or of course your wedding photos, or maybe you guys spent some time with family members or friends the holidays. So, submit probably 15 to 30 pictures or so. You can actually, you're gonna wanna print these pictures out. So you don't bring your phone and expect the officer to look at it. The officer doesn't wanna see your phone. In fact, they're probably gonna tell you to turn your phones off at the beginning. So you can just bring a regular computer sized piece of paper, and before the interview, print out some pictures on the computer paper. You can fit 6 or 12 pictures to a page if you want. Black and white's fine. The officer will appreciate that because they can just put this size paper in their folder, and they don't have these loose 4x6 pictures flying out of their file. So that's actually a good tip for you, just to print out the pictures on regular computer paper. Other types of joint documents are jointly filed tax returns, joint bank account statements, checking, savings, joint insurance documents, life insurance, auto insurance, health insurance, anything like that that has both your names on it. And by the way, the interview notice on the second page does have these ideas, these types of documents that I'm telling you right now. We also provided a list of these types of documents in the welcome packet that we gave you when you first started here with our firm. So take a look at those. How many do you need? There's no determinative set amount of documents that you need to be approved. Just show the officer that you're a real couple. I would say the more the merrier. If you have 3 types of those documents, bring all 3. If you have 7 types of those documents, bring all 7. If you don't bring anything, the officer can't make a decision. And so they won't approve you shortly after the interview. Instead, they're probably going to send a letter asking for those things after the interview. And then you're going to have a certain amount of time to submit them to the office so they can make a decision. So don't come unprepared without joint documents. You're going to want to bring some. Okay. So also on the interview notice, it tells you to bring originals. So when we initially filed the application, we submitted photocopies of the civil documents that were required. So for example, birth certificates, marriage certificate, divorce decrees, passports, visas, stuff like that. So for those types of documents, which are called civil documents, you're gonna want to bring to the interview the originals or certified copies of those civil documents. They don't look at them very often at the interview, but they do reserve the right to verify the authenticity of the documents that we submitted photocopies of. So they may ask to see your original birth certificate, for example. So anyway, the interview notice says to bring them. It also says to bring a copy. Go ahead and do that if you want. We already submitted copies of those, so they should already have copies. But anyway, do bring the originals or certified copies. All right. What else to bring? Your medical exam. If you haven't already submitted your medical exam with the initial filing, then do bring the medical exam in that sealed envelope from the doctor. And we would have provided you a referral for an immigration designated medical doctor. They call them civil surgeons. And there's one here in Linwood, Dr. Daniel Phan, Phan, that we usually refer to. So you can find his information. If you're out of state or if you are not in the Seattle area, there are doctors. You just go to uscis.gov and find their civil surgeon locator page on their website, and you just type in your zip code and find the nearest USCIS designated civil surgeon to you. So then you just go see that doctor. Okay. One thing is a common question here I get, the interview notice. Down here, I'm gonna take a highlighter. Down here it says, if required, a completed Form I-864 affidavit of support. And then there's 3 bullets underneath it that say tax returns, letter from current employer, and evidence of your spouse's citizenship. So this is something you don't need to bring because we've already submitted it in the initial filing. And if you've gotten this far, that means the affidavit of support and the supporting evidence that we submitted with it has been vetted and approved. They wouldn't schedule for an interview if they had an issue with the things that we submitted. So no need to worry about bringing this affidavit of support. No need to bring a letter from your employers verifying employment. You don't need to do that. And that goes for the tax returns, W-2s. Now, you can bring tax returns for a different purpose. If they're jointly filed with you and your spouse, you can bring those tax returns to show that it's part of the evidence of the bona fide marriage, but not for the purpose of sponsorship, which is why they indicate it here. It's already taken care of. There are some other kind of vaguely worded bullets down here. So for example, it says, trying to find the language. Basically, I can't find it right now. Basically, it says anything that has to do with your eligibility for adjustment of status. That's a catch-all phrase that may not apply to you. So, but for people with a criminal history, for example, they would have to bring certified copies of all of the court records for that criminal history, making them eligible so the government can see that they're not subject to a criminal related ground of inadmissibility, for example. So you and I will talk separately if there is an issue like that, and I will advise you separately during our separate conversation if there is some document that we think you need to bring. And we probably would have told you that already, but anyway, we'll have that conversation later. Okay, so toward the end of that marriage-based conversation where, you know, the officer is asking you how you met and you guys are kind of explaining your relationship, and then the officer will ask for documents to kind of show that your marriage is bona fide. Chances are the officer is not going to say, okay, you're approved, because they can't do that. They have to get a supervisor to sign off on your approval. So they're very guarded with their words, and they're not going to say that someone's approved before they can actually approve them. So don't expect them to say that you're approved or denied or something like that. They just don't do that. This is all done through letters. So what the officer is going to say, most likely, is that they'll say, well, that's everything I need. Thank you very much. I think the interview is over, And if I need anything after I do my final review, I will let you and your attorney know through a letter. And what that means is, say if they feel like they need more joint documents, they will ask for it in a letter and give us some time to submit that. Most likely, however, they're gonna approve your application probably that day or the next, or during that week. Just depends on their other caseload. You know, those officers have lots of cases to deal with, about 8 or 9 per day. So they will probably approve it soon if it's a straightforward case, which I think it will be. And unless we talk separately. And then you're gonna get your green card in the mail here in my office. And we will email or call you to let you know that the green card has arrived, and you guys can come by and pick it up, or one of you. Again, if you're out of state or not local to the Seattle area, we will arrange to mail it to you. I find that having these original documents, green cards, work cards, these types of things, mailed to my office is a lot more reliable than being mailed to my clients' residence, because many of my clients are kind of moving around. Maybe they live in apartments, and postal carriers are notorious for not being reliable in mailing anything to people in apartments. And so I just feel more comfortable, since we're here and we're gonna stay here for a while, having things mailed here, and then we can kind of be the home base. So we'll let you know when it's here, and we can arrange for you to come pick it up, or we'll mail it. Okay, so that is the basic overview of this adjustment of status interview, this green card interview through marriage. Again, it's for generally Seattle, the Seattle field office. Other field offices will do things very similar, but I know Portland has a slight tweak on how you enter the building. You know, like it's just a little bit different. Where the waiting room is, how you check in, but they're all somewhat similar. Okay, if you guys have any questions, you know how to reach us. Our emails and phone number is on the cover page of the welcome packet, and should be on all the letterhead that we've sent you, and our signature lines in our emails. So again, phone number is 425-947-1130. My email is brandon@gillenlaw.com. You can also, you can reach out to the paralegal who's working on your case, and also email me on all those emails too. It's like CC me so I can see what's going on. Okay, thank you so much for watching so far, and let me know if you have any questions. Good luck in your interview.